Hello and welcome to the Sky Sports Golf Podcast presented by Callaway, the final pod before we head to New York, where we'll be bringing our usual big preview podcast plus daily bite-sized pods reflecting on the day's play. The team are at Bethpage as we speak on their team trip as they aim to become the first side to win away from home since the heroes of the Miracle of Medinah 13 years ago. And my guest today is one of those heroes. Hello to Nicolas Colsaerts. Good to see you, Nico. How are you?
Hello, Jamie. Thanks for having me. Listen, I mean, I'm always flattered when I get to speak about the Ryder Cup and maybe give you a few insights of what happened in Medina and what the guys are about to face next week.
Yeah, look, it's great to have you on. We're going to have lots of Ryder Cup chat, as you say. Memories of Medina and of Rome 2 years ago, where Nico, of course, was one of the vice captains, the leader of the Viking thunderclap every day from recollection. We'll also be talking about his extraordinary career and a huge milestone on the horizon, because this week he'll be making his 499th DP World Tour appearance at a tournament where he is a past champion, and in a few weeks he'll be bringing up the 500 at the home of golf. How perfect is that? Before we get to you though, Nico, we're just going to reflect on events at Wentworth this last weekend. Alex Noren is a two-time BMW PGA champion, winning in a playoff against Adrian Sadier, and he's done a British double, winning the British Masters a few weeks ago at the Belfry. That was his first win in 7 years, and like London buses, two then come along at once. Nico, he's just a class act, isn't he, Alex? And, you know, nobody has a bad word to say about him.
It's funny with Alex because I mean, I know Alex a long time. We used to play amateur stuff together. We represented Europe in Jacques Leglise Trophy, which is Europe against GBNI when we were 16. Alex have always flown a little bit under the radar compared to what he's been able to do in his career. I saw this thing this morning. He's the Swede with the most wins on the European Tour, on the DP World Tour. He's been playing over in America for a long time. Alex is a really nice guy and probably one of the most hard-working golf professional you will come across. So, yeah, like you said, the double, British Masters and PGA Championship is something quite incredible.
You're right, 12 DP World Tour / European Tour wins now, which, you know, as you said, he's ahead of the likes of Henrik Stenson and all those great Swedish players that we've had. And for him to have had that sort of lull for 7 years, and then just to keep working as hard as he does. We know how hard a worker he is as well. Hats off to him.
Yeah, listen, the thing with you got to find a balance with hard working, and one of the things that's challenged Alex is the number of injuries that he's had. You know, whether it was wrist or now this last time, I think it was a hamstring or something like that. Let's not get into details. We don't know how that happened, but listen. Yeah, Alex is a class act. He's well respected within the profession, and what he's done in the last 20-25 years in his career is actually to have a lot of respect for.
Yeah, absolutely. A word about Adrian Sadier. Had learned from having the 54-hole lead the week before the Irish Open in Ireland. He'd kind of played cautiously on that occasion and gone backwards. This time he went out and he tried to win the thing. Bogey-free final round 68, and he seems to be developing as a player all the time.
Yeah, I think that he would have learned a lot from the last couple of weeks or the couple of weeks prior to Wentworth. You know, the one in Cron, I think, would have been the one that sang a lot to him because he's from the area, he's from the Alps, he's just from over the border in France, so he had a lot of family over on the weekend, and I think it might have thrown him off a little bit. But yeah, to be able to keep that nice trend of golfing a couple of weeks and bring that to Wentworth and go all the way or almost all the way to the end for somebody that has made a leap into what he's been developing on the golf course. I think you look back, there's always going to be a little bit of disappointment when you come short like that in a playoff. But at the same time, you know, I think he'd have to also respect the fact that it is the biggest tournament of the year. You're playing against the cream. And to do that in the second year where he's kind of really bursting into the scene is quite a remarkable achievement.
Yeah, fair play to him. And 11 of Europe's 12 were in the field. Rasmus, the only one to miss the cut. Bob McIntyre missed a secondary cut after Saturday's round. Of the other 9, Tyrrell, Victor and Fitz all in a tie for 5th. John Ram, Ludwig and Rory were all top 20. Shane and Tommy a few shots behind them in a tie for 46th. Justin Rose had a poor weekend after being right in the mix after 2 rounds. But pretty much everybody, Nico, just sort of ticking over and in nice form ahead of what's on the horizon.
I mean, it's easy to look at Wentworth for the ones that kind of felt like they were like 30th or 40th and think like, is there something going on? Absolutely not. I mean, the guys have been firing all cylinders for the last couple of months. Some of them have played extremely well in FedEx, of course, with Tommy Fleetwood winning it. I think we're looking extremely good. We have a side that has a lot to offer, a side that is extremely familiar with one another, having just Rasmus that's been switched with Nicolas, his brother from last time. So I think all the guys are in the perfect position, the perfect frame of mind, and really good in golfing skills right now to actually go to Bethpage and have a really good chance.
And as I said at the start of the show, they are in Bethpage as we speak. What will they be getting up to at the moment?
Well, they hopped on a plane on Sunday night, and they have like what we call a 2-day practice trip. It's the first time we do it in the US. We did it last time in Rome, and it's 2 days to get familiarized with the environment, to get familiarized with the golf course, to get familiarized with how you get into the venue, where the locker room is, and really try to tick the boxes that you do early in the week beforehand, and spend time together, and get everything in the best place possible. That the gun goes on Friday. Everybody's ready and everybody knows who they're playing with. Everybody knows what's going on.
How beneficial was that trip before Rome? Because everybody speaks about it in glowing terms.
Listen, I mean, it's a team event. So the more time you spend together, it's always going to play in your favor. It's not like, where everybody knows each other extremely well. They spend a lot of time, not just within themselves, but also with their families. Some of them are extremely close, and all that kind of stuff. But when you go into a competition like that, which has a lot of responsibility, there's a lot of pressure to play under and everything. The more time you spend together, the more you set the theme and you set the tone of we're doing this together. It's a very important, or I think it will become a very important thing that we will put in place for the next Ryder Cups.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get plenty more into the Ryder Cup in just a bit, but let's talk about you for a bit now, Nico. Appearance 499 this week in France. When you made appearance number 1, which I think was at the Dutch Open in 1998 at the age of 16, if I'm right, I'm sure you couldn't have imagined that you'd be racking up 5,000 tournaments.
Listen, it's a very strange feeling. Although it's something that I've dreamt of doing since I was a really, really young boy. You never think that you're gonna be somebody that will see many generations go by. I started playing on tour. I still cross paths with Sevi and Ola Sabels. And now you're playing with Martin Kouvra, who's 21. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to live amazing moments. I've almost ticked all the boxes that I wanted. Should I have more wins and more lines on my CV? Yes, 100%. I'll be the first one to admit it. But at the same time, I don't believe that I had the same package that the McIlroys and the John Rams and all that kind of stuff. I'd kind of like to have a good time back in the day, and I always marched to my own beat. And maybe I would have not been able to do what I've done if I had tried to be somebody else. But yeah, 500 tournaments is a long journey. You've seen a lot of stuff. You've had to deal with a lot of adversity. But the overall way I look at it is I've been extremely grateful to have lived all those amazing moments.
That's a lot of airports. That's a lot of flights. That's a lot of weeks in hotels.
It's a lot of room service.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
The longevity is something you must be extraordinarily proud of, because to keep on going for 25 years is something else.
Yeah, it's long. You kind of change personalities throughout these 25 years. I'm definitely not the person I was when I was 20, when I was 25, 30, when I was at my peak. Let's be honest. But yeah, you look at the tour staff has changed, the equipment has changed, the company has changed, the way that I travel has changed. I'm married now. I have 2 kids, a 4 and a 7-year-old at home. I wouldn't have been able to keep going the last 10 years if I hadn't been with Rachel, my wife. She's been extremely supportive. This health scare a couple of years ago that has thrown a little different dynamic in the way that I see life and I see where I want to be. But yeah, again, it's part of life. Everybody has their issues. I think I don't judge people as easily now. Everybody has their own to deal with at home.
Yeah.
And the moral of the story is that sometimes we shouldn't be judging others too quick.
How much did that health scare just? I know it came as a bolt from the blue. How much has it changed you as a golfer, but more importantly as a person?
It changed a lot. It changed everything. And I think it's one of the reasons why I've been contemplating and hanging out the boots for a couple of years. You realize that there is more in life than, beating a wide ball and beating yourself up every day. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a challenge, not just for myself, but for my family. Again, Rachel, my other half, has been key into getting me back out actually. But yeah, it's been 3 years, 3 challenging years. Mental health has also took a little bit of a toll the last couple of years. I know it might seem like something a bit of a trend right now where everybody says that they're
No,
struggling with their
but
mental health, but it's really something. It's and again, I've been doing the same thing for 25 years. I look at guys like Jimenez and Bernard Langer and even Thomas Bjorn. I have a huge respect, which I didn't have when I was 25 years old. You look at all these old guys and you think, what are they still doing out here? And at the same time now, I look at it with a huge amount of respect and the drive and the dedication that these guys and the passion for the game.
for those that don't know, I mean, just to be completely blunt about it, you thought you were going to die a few years ago, right?
Yeah, it could have been one of the outcomes. Yeah, the thing that was scary was that they found a couple of blood clots in my lungs, and I was supposed to hop on the flight to play a tournament in Thailand. Only 4 or 5 days after that. So I don't have to tell you what can happen in the plane when you got blood clots. It can be quite tragic. But yeah, it's not like I suffered. It's not like I really physical challenges. There was times where because I was highly dehydrated and I was doing water retention. I had these cramps in the middle of the night where I could hardly move, almost to the points of tears. The only difficult part of that is that you actually question if that is going to be your life from now on. That's the most challenging part of all this, and you don't know if you're ever going to be the same person again. And with the help of others, you can't go through that sort of challenges without the help of others. And I've been lucky enough to have extremely good people around me.
Yeah. You mentioned Miguel and Bernhard and Thomas, and throw Podrick Harrington into that mix as well, in terms of guys who clearly just love golf. And I think that is half the battle, isn't it? For that longevity, you have to still love what you do on a daily basis. Do you see yourself being like them, and are you still completely in love with the game and you want to keep on playing for as long as you can?
The million-dollar question, Jamie. Listen, there's two questions here. There is the passion for the game, which I think all of us, even if at one stage we have enough of being on tour, because playing golf and playing professional golf is it's two very different things. When you play, schedule of 25, 30 weeks a year, where week in, week out, you have to extract the maximum of your potential, and your golf intellect can be quite, it's a grind.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, I don't think that I would ever, fall off the love of the game, because it's in us. We've been doing it for so long, and because we know so much about the game. I don't think I will ever lose the passion for the game. But the when it starts to become a job, and when you wake up in the morning, you think like, it's not, oh, today I'm gonna go play. It's, I have to go play today. It's very different.
Yeah, I bet. Look, number 499 comes at a tournament that you've won. Not at the venue you won it at. Only the third time since 1991, I think, that the Open de France isn't at the Golf National. But a special tournament for you nonetheless, this one, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I came from Belgium. Yeah, I played the majority of my career without a Belgian Open. Now we have the Soudal Open in Antwerp,
Yeah.
in Ringvent. But I always considered the French Open and the Dutch Open as my national opens. Being Belgians, we're a little bit in between. We're a little bit Flemish. We're a little bit French speaking. Yeah, but France has always been extremely kind to me. This is actually where, at Saint-Ola British, that's where I kind of burst out on the scene at the Trophy Longcombe in 2003, playing in the last round on Saturday and Sunday with Retief Goose and Paul McGinley, and went almost all the way. I have a strong affiliation with this golf course. We've played a bunch of Seve trophies here. It's the typical charming Parisian golf club with a lot of tradition, like you would find around London. It's a little bit like your Sunningdale, Berkshire type place. So it has that charm, that French charm. Golf National is an amazing venue. Don't get me wrong, but when you take your first steps onto the venue, it gives you the creeps a little bit. It's not really the most charming place. So I think in the end, I'm actually quite happy that the majority of these guys that don't know about Saint-Laurent Bethpage get to play a French Open at a classic French course.
And your French Open win, where does that sit for you in your career? Because we just spoken about Alex Noren ending a long wait for a tournament win. It was kind of the same for you when you won Le Golf National a few years ago.
Yeah. It has a special place again because it's France. Because I've always been part of the golfing landscape in even in the French press. Before the arrival of Victor Dubuisson, there was a bit of a gap, between the Thomas Levet and Ralph Jacquelin and Havre and Victor. I was a French-speaking member of the Ryder Cup team in 2012. I featured in majors a couple of years in a row, and so I've always understood that I had a place in the French golfing landscape, with the language helping, of course. But I've always had a tremendous support from the French crowds. For us Belgians, it's a little bit, the French tend to make fun of the Belgians, but at the same time, they're a huge fan of ours because we have a different sense of humor and we just simply make them laugh. So they have a soft spot for us.
And then tournament number 500 for you in the DP World Tour will be at the home of golf. What a place to do it, Nico.
It doesn't get any better than that. It's not just St Andrews; it's also the Alfred Dunhill, where I finished second last year. It's one of the best weeks of the year. You get to meet incredible people, with the amateur lineups. I've played with Tom Chaplin, the singer from Keane. Last year, I played with Ari Emanuel, which is the character of Ari Gold in Entourage, which is one of the biggest agent representation in the US. One of the owners of UFC. I played with Sir Steve Redgrave. So I've met incredible people at that event. It's also the tournament of Johan Rupert, which has been one of the greatest supporters of the European Tour and South African golf, which is a character on his own, but an incredible human being. And like you said, it's St Andrews. I'm going to get to walk the fairways of St Andrews for my 500th event on the European Tour, DP World Tour. It's something I'm extremely grateful, extremely touched, and a bit overwhelmed actually.
Can you anticipate how you might feel making that famous walk up the 18th at St Andrews on the old course?
Yeah, I know already. I'm gonna walk up 18th fairway with a tear in my eye, like I did at the 72nd hole at the Olympics, like I did when we won the Ryder Cup in Rome. Since the health scare, I tend to shed a tear very quickly. Unfortunately, I've always been this hypersensitive.
All of us. We're all getting to that age in life. We all cry far too easily.
Listen, I was always a bit hypersensitive, but it's been multiplied by X for a couple of years. But yeah, it would be. I'm looking forward to it, but at the same time, I know that I'm going to be taken over by the emotions.
Yeah, we're going to get on to the Ryder Cup in just a bit, but taking the Ryder Cup out of it, what have been the highlights of the last quarter of a century?
It's very difficult to really pin one. I've only won 3 times on the DP Tour, but I won the Volvo World Match Play, and when you look at the trophy and you look at the names on the trophy, I saw a quote from Rory, because he's going to play the Australian Open at the end of the year, and he said, what matters is your name on the trophy with the other greats of the game. And I'm very fortunate to have my name on the trophy where there is Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Ernie Els, Seve Ballesteros. They're absolutely all on them, Colin Montgomery. So, for a little kid that grew up in the middle of Brussels, to have been able to get to the top of the tree is something I'm incredibly proud of.
And just before we finish this part, is another thing you're incredibly proud of the fact that you've inspired another generation of Belgian golfers as well? Because without you, there's probably no Thomas Pieters, there's probably no Thomas Dietrich. I spoke to Thomas at the start of this year after he won in Phoenix, and he said, I will always be the first ever Belgian to win on the PGA Tour. That makes me incredibly proud. But without somebody to have come before them, that doesn't happen. We're now seeing a lot of female golfers as well from Belgium as well. How proud are you to have been the precursor to all of them?
I mean, you have to understand that, when you come from a small country, you need your trailblazers. You need the people that set an example for you, and they show you that it doesn't matter where you come from. There's always that possibility to reach the skies. I think it's a bit of coincidence that all of a sudden we've had three amazing Belgian golfers in a stretch of 10 years. But at the same time, they went through this really good program that's in Belgium, like a type of school golf kind of program. That they went over to Mike Small at the University of Illinois, which without Mike Small, I don't think that Thomas Pieters and Thomas Surgery would have burst out on scene. So I'm not the only one responsible at all. But I tend to think that, having me there in the vision for them to go like, hang on a minute, like there's also somebody from where I come from that's been able to get to where I want to go. So it's definitely achievable. So I might have, fast-paced a little bit their explosion into the world of golf.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at fantastic. We're going to take a little break there, but when we come back, we're going to be chatting all things Medinah. Hello there, welcome back to the Sky Sports Golf Podcast presented by Callaway. Delighted to say that Nico Colsaerts is still with me, and we are going to chat about the Miracle at Medinah. 13 years on, we're still waiting for another side to win on away soil. It was an unforgettable week. Nico, let's start with that Friday afternoon, out with Lee Westwood for your first ever Ryder Cup match. How were you feeling?
A little bit all over the place. I know it might have not looked like that on screen, but when you walk onto the first tee, it's I know there's been plenty of pieces done on what it's like to tee it up at the first hole in a Ryder Cup, but this thing takes over any of your. It takes over. It complete control of yourself. My hands were going all over the place. My knees were going all over the place. The ball was blur, and I remember telling myself, "Well, you got no choice. You can't back off now, otherwise you're gonna have 50,000 Americans, shouting at you." But yeah, it's an incredible thing to live. And of course, at the end of the week, when you come out victorious, it's multiplied by 100.
Well, if you were incredibly nervous, then it didn't show, because how do you explain what unraveled over the next 4 hours when it felt like you hold about 200 yards worth of putts, and Lee was just a passenger. Lee was just standing there watching you. That must have been an almost out-of-body experience, the way you played that afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, I look back and I think, like, how did I not wake up in the middle of that round and think, like, this is just too good. This just can't be real. But because it was something that was extremely dear to me, that's something that I've always wanted to be a part of, and because of also my team sports pedigree from my father's side family, it was always something that I had in my DNA. The first ever Ryder Cup that I saw was 91 in Kiowa, which was the war on the shore. So it was a proper decent introduction to, what the rivalry between the US and Europe is. And Medinah wasn't really far from that. It's a very intimidating atmosphere to play under. But at the same time, it's what makes this event so captivating and so incredible to not only to see, to watch, but to live from within. It's even better.
Sportsmen talk about being in the zone. Were you in the zone that Friday afternoon when, I think, what were you, 10 under par on your own ball, something like that?
Yeah, so I made 8 birdies and an eagle, and I think I hit the hole on the first, I hole shoot on the third. I made 5 on the par 5. 14 with a 5-iron in my hand. So it could have
been a 59.
Man, it could have been something absolutely incredible. But no, the end was what, I was kind of saved at the end with Tiger missing, a 15, 18 footer for a half. And the funny part of the story is, when I was on the 18th green, I lagged my putt to give me range, and I went to Westwood and I said, I don't know if I have the balls to watch this. And he looked at me like this and went like, might as well watch it. And Woods missed a spud means that we have a point. We win one up, and again, like you said with Detry, I'm the first ever Belgian to not only play in the Ryder Cup but score points. So something, again, something to be proud of.
Absolutely. And look, you mentioned him there. It wasn't just the fact that you played unbelievable golf that afternoon, but you took down Tiger Woods. I mean, for a 30-year-old who'd watched this guy as you were growing up, you must have been like, this is some feather to have in my cap.
Yeah, but then at the same time, when you play your first Ryder Cup and you're drawn against Tiger Woods, if you don't show up and you get beaten 5-4, everybody think it's normal. So you kind of don't really have much to lose.
Yeah.
But I was I'm the one that put my hand up to play with Lee. I felt that, Westy was going to be the guy that I was going to feel the most comfortable out there. And there was an extremely clever situation that happened on the 15th green where he gave away a putt to Stricker, and therefore I could still putt first instead of Tiger. And it's exactly why I wanted to go with one of the Barons and one of the guys with a lot of experience, because when you're when you play the Ryder Cup your first time around, you can't really dissect the situation and dissect what is happening around you the way that somebody that's been around a lot more than you have can do. So and funny enough, McGinley the year after in 2014 came up to me and said that they'd have learned a lot from not what I brought, but the way that I handled my rookie status coming into this team in 2012.
We know what then unfolded. Take us into the team room on Saturday night. At 10-4, it was looking like a hopeless situation. We win those last two matches. Poulter's heroics. It's 10-6. And there's a palpable feeling in that team room that we can do this, lads.
Well, there was hope. There was hope. And all we wanted was a glimmer of hope. And the momentum in the team room had definitely changed. When you see the images of Poulter on that 18th green, it's not just Poulter. There was this other game of Luke and Sergio that turned out to be key, because if Luke and Sergio don't win their game, which is the one before Rory and Poulter, you're not looking that great either. So it's the combination of those two games. Everybody remembers Poulter's, but the one prior to that was also a key moment into the comeback. But the momentum had changed. When you see those Poulter's bulging eyes on 18, it would motivate anyone. And without that Saturday afternoon, like you said, it would have been a done deal. It would have been curtains, and everybody would have gone home. But yeah, what happened on the Sunday as well? Winning all the first games, and then when you look at how many things happened, a putt here, a putt there, and the thing that is crazy is that if you look at the highlights of Sunday, if the pin position was different on 17, I guarantee you the US would have won, because they all had draw players. The wind was off the right. The pin was long way right near the water and the bunker. If the pin was in the middle of the green, the US would have won. And so sometimes it tells you how little detail makes a difference into a competition like the Ryder Cup.
Wow, that's extraordinary. I've never heard that before. On that Saturday night, or whether it was the Sunday morning, I don't know. Who were the key voices in that team room? Was it Jose Manuel Athabal, or was it some of the bigger players? Who sort of got up and gave that talk that you were like, right, I'm ready to go out tomorrow and run through a brick wall?
The biggest one like that is Poulter. I remember walking through the locker room, going to the driving range to warm up, and Poulter was coming back from the driving range to go to the first tee. And he looked at me with eyes like that, and he went, "Let's effing have him." I was like, oh, this guy's he's just wired up differently. I think we don't have to go into details of what the Ryder Cup has not only meant to him, but how he's been able to feature in it. But Sergio is quite vocal in there. Westwood also. Olosabo gave us a proper on the Friday night, where after I just won my game, I was at the back of the class with a big smile like this. I was the only rookie in the team. But,
you did fine. The other 11 of you were hopeless.
Yeah. Don't give to the rookie, but you can give a little bit of a little bit of stick to the others. give stick to the Barons.
How conscious of you, how aware were you of what was happening on Sunday? Because you're out in the course, you're trying to focus on your own match, but are you aware of the amount of blue that's on that scoreboard, and that the tide is turning, and that the crowd are starting to get quieter?
I mean, although the rest of the guys would tell you that you only have to worry about your match and that's the only thing that you should be paying attention to, it's very difficult to not look at the board, and especially the way that, the first 5 matches were going. I was number 6 in the lineup, and with a couple of holes to go, I realized that I was just about, I was the first one to lose a game, and I don't think I've ever felt so disappointed in myself. But it's difficult to not look at the board and realize, knowing that we needed to get off a strong start, which is exactly what we need. But then the last hour was absolutely incredible. Like, it went to this can happen, to this is happening, to then Kaymer hitting his first putt to like 8 feet, to like he's not gonna just mess everything up with a 3-putt on the last, and so then making the putt and then explosion again. So we all went through these waves, and you can see, like, if you go on YouTube and you look at the way that Olazabal is pacing the 18th fairway, you can tell that he at that stage there is no, you cannot think straight. Like, you are just totally immersed into the situation, and when you're part of it, you realize that you're witnessing one of sport's greatest moments. So it's it's an amazing experience. And in this case, it was so big that it wasn't just for us; it was the people that were on sites. The Europeans that were there. You always have this group of Englishmen that wear the Crusader stuff and everything. And I remember,
That's right, yeah.
I remember seeing them, and you could tell the guys had no voice left. You could tell that they had been shouting all day. So you could, on the Sunday, we could definitely see that the voice of the Americans were lowered, and the Europeans were getting louder and louder.
Where were you for Martin's putt, which, as you say, was far longer than it had to be? But where were you standing for that?
We're all short right of the green on 18. Yeah, it just explodes.
Yeah.
You when
Do you even remember? Do you even remember who the first player you hugged was?
No, I don't remember, because I must have hugged 250 people from the moment the putt dropped until I made it to London the Monday lunchtime. I must have hugged 250 people. I said this in an interview the other day. It's incredible when you win something like this in such an incredible fashion. Anything goes.
Yeah.
Even the lowest quality joke becomes extremely funny. You just hug people that you don't even know who they are, don't know what they do. It's just this togetherness that, in a way, is our strength as well. It's this way that we the communing of the Europeans on American soil when things go well, that it's extraordinary.
And I was at that press conference with you and Jose Maria at Heathrow Airport on Monday lunchtime, and you looked as if you'd had absolutely zero sleep. Is that about right?
No, I had no voice left. So,
Yeah, I remember.
we land in Heathrow, and the majority of the guys were living in the US. So there's only a couple of us on this flight back, and so we're doing this press conference at Heathrow Airport, and they all vanished. I was the only one there, so they grabbed me and said, like, "Okay, Nicolas, you're doing a press conference with no voice. I'm doing live. I'm doing Sky News live, and I've got a voice extinction." And I'm like, "This is pointless." But no, even the press conference at Medinah was extraordinary as well. Like, it was just like, it wasn't even serious at all. Like, everybody was just giggling and started drinking, and it's like a 16-year-old school trip.
Yeah. Yeah, amazing. And then, you sort of touched upon this earlier in the podcast. You were a little bit wilder back in the day. Were you the leader of the party on that Sunday night at Medinah?
I wasn't a leader, but I made a point that I was going to be the last player standing. I mean, well, we got no chance against the majority of the caddies. Like, that's the non-competition.
Oh, yeah.
But
True.
but players wise, I mean, I still have game. Even though I don't drink anymore, I don't really go out anymore, but I choose them very carefully. And when I do, I'm really good company usually, and I keep going until I fall.
Absolutely. And then you're asked by Luke to be a vice captain for Rome. What was that experience like, of being part of the backroom team? Not being able to hit a shot, but still being part of the team?
It's more the fact that you are asked to help for the greater cause, or a cause that is extremely dear to you. Every Ryder Cup player has this affiliation with the competition, and the affiliation to representing your continent, and the set of responsibility that comes with it. It's a enormous honor. don't get me wrong. I mean, it's an extremely cool week to be a part of, but it's more, the fact that you are helping a team that only plays a competition where there is 12 selected players every 2 years, which come with bragging rights for another 2 years on the opposing side. That is extremely satisfying to be a part of.
And again, I mentioned it earlier, that Viking thunderclap on the first tee at Rome. I still get goosebumps thinking about it now. What was that like to be the leader of the Viking thunderclap?
Well, it's funny because I was at the Ryder Cup in Rome in 2018. In Paris, sorry.
Yeah.
And Greg Havre was driving one of the carts, I think, for Thomas.
Right, yeah.
And Greg was like, "Come on the tee, we'll do a clap together." So I had a bit of a warm up 5 years prior, so I kind of knew a little bit, how to maximize the effect of a clap. But I was actually on the way. I was walking up from the driving range, and the other vice captains on the radio were kind of shouting at me to come into the tee quick because we were running out of time. And Dodo tells a story when I'm on Nico, you need to come to the first tee now. And apparently my response was coming in hot.
I love it. Fantastic. I expect nothing less. We've spoken so much in this podcast about Luke's leadership and Luke's style of leadership. What more can you say about Luke and how blown away you were by how he led that team 2 years ago?
I think there's a couple of things to look at Luke's captaincy. I think number one is the attention to detail about absolutely everything. For the people that don't know, when you are receiving captain, there's a lot more stuff to organize, the official dinners and all that kind of stuff. So there's probably 2, if not 3 times more work than when you go away. And him and Diane I've been able to pull an incredible edition with, closing the Spanish Steps, which is, I think, the second or third time in the history of Rome that the Spanish Steps are closed. One other time it was to shoot Mission Impossible. So, I mean, something quite incredible. And being Rome, I think the both of them really understood that Rome really stood as the ancient civilization of Europe, and they really, really, respected that and brought that in, the success of the week and what people would get out of that week if you are in the audience. And I think that they've done an incredible job. The other part that I think he's done extremely well is not quite a change of personality, but made himself a lot more approachable. Luke, when Luke was at his peak, Luke could be sitting in the corner of a players' lounge eating on his own. And now, when you are a captain, you have to tap in a lot more. You have to tap in a different skill set. You have to build a relationship, not only with the players, not only with 12 players, but the 20, 25 players that you're looking at when the qualifying process starts. Then that you have the same number of caddies that you have to build a relationship with, the families, their staff. So you really roam around for a year and a half, trying to build the strongest relationship possible with guys that are possibly going to make your team. And it wasn't necessarily, I would say, something that he excelled at when he was playing. So he really had to change a little bit the way that he was navigating around into the world of golf, and he done it extremely well.
Incredible week in Rome. Tell us what it was like. Presumably Luke called you in the last few months and explained to you they were going in a different direction with the vice captaincy this time. How disappointing was that?
Well, yeah, very disappointed because it's a competition that I live for, that has basically been the only thing that will, get me out of bed for the last couple of years. So extremely disappointed, yes. But then, the captain is in charge. There is no hard feelings to have about the decision the captain makes. And also because the respect of the competition and the respect of who is representing us every 2 years, I would always back them. Yes, of course, I would have loved to be there. And more that I would have loved to help. It's not really live the week. It's the fact that I'm not able to help that I'm disappointed and sad about. But at the same time, I'm going for a couple of days. I'm going to mingle a little bit, with them early in the week. And then coming work with you guys on the weekend on the build-up show on Saturday and Sundays, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, listen, I would always back the team. I would always wish them good luck. I would always think, the world about the guys that are representing us, and I hope that we keep the cup.
And that continuity that we have, 11 of the 12 from Rome, just as you said earlier, Rasmus swapped in for Nicolas, and Rasmus was there in Rome as well and experienced what it was like. The same backroom team with the exception of yourself as well. Having that settled team in place, how much of a head start does that give Europe?
Yeah, I mean everybody's comfortable with one another. You go there with that familiar feeling. Everybody knows what they have to do. Where's their place? Um, and yeah, I mean they say never change a winning team. It's no coincidence. And because the challenge is different, because you're gonna have to work more as a closed knit, because of the crowd that you're gonna play in front of. I think from what I know, because I'm not in the loop, of course, not being involved, from what I see from the outside, it looks like they're doing everything they need to do to be ready for next week.
Yeah. We've spoken so much in the build up about what that New York crowd are going to be like. I wonder whether we've built it up so much in our heads that it's going to be so toxic and so poisonous that we're actually going to be pleasantly surprised and it's not going to be as bad as we think. But take us to what those first 2 days were like in Chicago in terms of the crowd and whether you blocked it out or did you feed off it?
Well, the first day I heard nothing because, we spoke about it. I was in the zone. I just
Yeah.
worried about what was happening within my match. And I realized that the only thing that mattered is really those four golf balls. It's the only thing that matters. Whatever, Joe is saying, shouting after he's had 6 beers on the sixth fairway, that has, you know, literally no impact on the game. It does, but it shouldn't have. It's an outside element. I think the New York crowd is it's a different crowd.
Hmm.
I think it's a crowd that loves entertainment. If you look at the U.S. Open at tennis, I think it's the
Yeah.
best example. They have no problem telling you how they feel, but at the same time, I feel that the New York crowd will have no problem giving stick to their own.
Yes.
So I think that that's something that I'm not saying it plays in our part, but at the same time, that is something to know. As soon as any player from outside would realize, hang on a minute, they're giving stick to their own. This is our moment where we put the foot down. I think that's going to be a key moment for us.
Look, we cannot wait for it. It's going to be an amazing week. I'm looking forward to seeing you out there as well, my friend. Before then, appearance number 499. So I hope it goes well for you this week in France. Thanks so much for your time. Some career so far, and it's showing no signs of slowing down just yet.
No, thank you, Jamie. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to see you at the Ryder Cup. I know it's a week that you also like. That it's an exciting week for anyone involved, from within or far. But yeah, 499, 500 at Dunhill. Listen, it's pretty cool.
Fantastic stuff. Look, we're going to take a quick break there. When we come back, I'll have another guest joining me here in the studio. Welcome back to the Sky Sports Golf Podcast presented by Callaway. Now I have a very special guest alongside me and a first for the podcast this year in a non-golfing guest, other than the fact that he does play golf and loves the game like all of us. A big welcome to Sir Clive Woodward. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Jamie. Pleasure to be here.
How long have you been a golfer?
I didn't start playing golf till after I finished playing rugby. I
Right.
played at the top level for England, so probably started playing golf probably mid-30s, so pretty late. And but like I think all of us, we kind of love the game. Once you get into it, it's one of those kind of almost an addiction in a way. So I love golf. I love all the watching golf as well. I think there's nothing better than the Sunday afternoon watching the last 9 holes of
Yeah.
various tournaments. So yeah, I'm a big golf fan.
And what's great, everyone watching this and listening to this podcast, it's a game for life, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you do have a significant birthday next year, but you're still going strong playing golf and loving it.
Yeah, I play at Lambourne Golf Club which is I've been a member there for 30 odd years now. So we have a kind of a hardcore early bird Saturday morning at 7 o'clock. So we all about 30 of us turn up and we'll draw cards. So yeah, I really love it, and I take it as serious as I can.
Yeah.
Well, you're always trying to get better. It's one of those great games where, as you say, you can play all till you're very very old. That's why it's a great game, and yeah, I think we're very lucky to still be playing it.
I've played it with a few other, elite sportsmen like yourself, and those competitive juices never leave you. Are you still extremely competitive when you're out in the course?
I like to think so. I've been lucky. I've played in with various top players. played with Sergio Garcia, and I've played with all sorts of top players, and they're great. When you actually play with them, you suddenly realise how good they are when you stood next to them and watch them hit the ball, and also when you play with these guys, their knowledge of our sport. I'm a rugby union coach, but their knowledge of the rugby, for example, is very high. I always want to talk to you about what's going on. So I think golf's very, very lucky. It's fundamentally got some brilliant people involved in the game.
It is so different to the sport that you played at an international elite level. The pace at which it's played, the fact that you're on your own as opposed to having 14 teammates around you. Are there parallels between the two there?
Oh yeah, I think the ability to play under pressure is the key thing in all sports, but I think it's obviously massive in golf. And I think we can see that. You can say, do you want to be that person who's got a 6-foot putt to win the Masters or win the Ryder Cup? Do you want to be in that position? The answer is yes. Do you want to be the Johnny Wilkinson who's got a kick to win the World Cup? The answer is yes. That's why we actually do it. So I think the word pressure is a good word. I love the word pressure. I think that's why we do it as a player and a coach. You want to put yourself in that ultimate position, and you want to see, can you deliver on that moment in time? And I think pressure is good, but I also think pressure is something you can coach people, you can teach people how to play under pressure. I think it's a good word, but that goes across all sports, from football to rugby to golf. I think the real champions love that. That's why we do it, bottom line. And if you don't like pressure, well, you shouldn't be doing it.
You also have an app at the moment which is golf related, so tell us a bit about that.
Interesting, I've probably had more golf lessons, Jamie, than probably anybody. When I go around the world, I have golf lessons. I just want to see what a golf coach says to me. So I have golf lessons around the world. But what tends to happen, without being too simplistic, you have a golf lesson with I've never not met a nice professional golfer. So you meet a nice pro, you have an hour with that golfer, and he teaches this, and this. But then, almost without exception, you kind of leave the car park, turn left, and by the time you drive out the car park, you've forgotten everything they've actually said to you.
True.
So you have a great hour with the pro. It's great fun, and you learn something, but you forget it. So I started to think of it from a rugby coaching point of view. I was kind of neurotic at writing things down, keeping things, finding out, and studying, and the data and all this sort of stuff. And I sort of worked out, well, why can't we do this in golf? We should be doing this now. So, I obviously watch Sky a lot, and you see, say Nick, for example. Nick does his stuff on the TV, but you should be. How do you keep it? How do you keep it in your head? Because you can't just keep it. So you see these amazing coaches and players giving you all these tips, but how do you put it into a format? So I started to work out how you put it in the format. I work with Dan Grieve on this in terms of saying, okay, how can we create an app where you actually capture the stuff that's relevant to you? So this is not just a general podcast. This is relevant to you. So you're trying to capture all your information that's relevant to you. And I use the word basics. I think the basics is a real, and it's used so much in every sport. Can we get the basics right? But I go a step further, and this is what I did in rugby. We were massive on this. We worked out what the basics were in rugby, and this is what we had to drill and not back off this. And what I found in golf, the guys I play with, if I they're over the drive or the putt, so okay, what are you thinking about? What are the basics? And they look at you like you're mad, and they just don't know this stuff. So to me, it's getting all this knowledge from all these from podcasts, from magazines, from TV, from coaches, but get it into a format that works for you. And so we got it onto an app now, which is called Strive, which it's on the App Store now, so it's STRYVE. So Strive with a Y. And what we're unashamedly trying to do is to allow people like myself and you to capture your basics. And then what you can do when you know your basics and they're all captured, through technology now on your phone and your app, you can put your earphones in, and then you can be practicing, but you're replaying what the basics are. You're playing the key coaching points. And it allows you to just practice a lot better. So you can practice on your own, but it really allows you to work with your coach and the coach to actually create your basics. But I think basics is a great word. They're what I call the fundamentals, the things you've absolutely got to get right. It's all about having your basics, not just reading Dan Grieve's basics or Nick Doherty's basics. What are your basics that apply to you? And then you've got to find ways of practicing them. And what I think you can practice these in your kitchen, your back garden. You need to be on the golf course. And that's half the problem. We look at golf players like myself. The coaches aren't miracle men. You've got to put some time in yourself. And I think if you can spend an hour a day just going through the basics, even in your mind, in your car, in your back garden, by the time you come to play Saturday morning, you've got half a chance. So it's all about capturing your own knowledge in these basics.
You're so right about putting the work in, because I'm always blown away by any event I go to. You see, the Scotty Schefflers, the Rory McIlroys of the world, the very best players on the planet, just grinding away on the range,
exactly.
and asking other people for input as well. And if the very, very best players are having to work that hard and constantly take on knowledge, then it goes, us amateur hackers need to be doing it as well, don't we?
Well, one of my favourites when I'm lucky enough to meet these professional players, I always just say, when you're over the ball, what are you thinking? When you actually, in Johnny Wilkinson taking the kick goal, Johnny, what are you thinking? When you're over that putt, what are you thinking? And I think that, once you know your sort of basics, what's the number one thing? If I get that one thing right, there's a high chance I'll play a good shot. And then once you know that's your basic, how do I practice this? How do you practice this? And I keep referring to Johnny for obvious reasons, because the viewers will know him. But I mean, he's the best goal kicker, one of the hardest working people I've ever actually worked with.
And an obsessive personality as well.
Yeah, and I like the word obsessive. I see obsessive as a real positive word. I regard myself as an obsessive person. You want to do well. But he had an amazing coach in Dave Allred, who's a decent player. But Johnny Wilkinson kicking at goal, the number one thing for him is just if he's left-footed, was the planting of his right foot. He had to, when he's coming in to kick that goal, he's got to plant his right foot so it doesn't move whatever. And when you think of penalty kicks, how many penalty kicks do you think we've missed when the non-kicking foot slips? So that's your basic. So there's the planting of your non-kicking foot. So how do you practice that? When you think about how do you practice that to make sure every time when you're under real pressure that's got to be right? And he's just saying, if I get the right foot planted right, I'll kick the ball great. So when you're over that 6-foot putt to win the Masters, what's the one thing we've got to get right? And that's all you should be thinking about. But we want to actually document this and put it into the app, so they work for you. So every person using Strive, it's what you need, what you've required, what you've learned, and it never ends. You're always adding to it, tweaking it as your new thoughts come through. And I'm really proud of what we've done. We just launched it now. It's only been launched for a couple of weeks. But we think also I want to potentially take it into other sports. So we started with golf, because I think golf, because of Dan, was quite straightforward. But can we do any sport? But so young people can actually start to capture knowledge and information and really learn. And what I remember saying to Dan was, if we taught maths, English, history like this, we'd all fail, because we're not writing things down, we're not capturing it, we're not keeping it, we're not getting logical order.
Expected to hold it up.
Exactly.
There,
if your kids went to school and we didn't taught like this, they'd all fail these subjects. In maths, they all write things down, they learn, they do exams in it, and that's what we should be doing in golf.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. And to tie it into golf as well, Dave Allred was instrumental in Francesco Molinari becoming the Open champion, and
Luke, he worked with Luke Donald. He
worked with Luke as well.
Harrington.
Exactly, which ties us nicely into obviously what's looming on the horizon next week. How much are you looking forward as a golf fan to the Ryder Cup?
Oh, massively. It's kind of, the Ryder Cup, I'd say, and it's just whatever. It's just worked out brilliantly well. The scoring system, the history, the 3 days, the individual players coming into a team situation. It's one of those just amazing events. I think it's one of either the best sporting event there is. It's right up there with World Cup football and the Olympic Games. And it's just the whole thing is just brilliantly put together, and they do it so well. And I think this year, especially being in New York, and the Americans getting thumped last year, I think it was 16.5, 11.5, wasn't it? So them getting thumped, it's going to be fantastic. So I can't wait. It's one of those moments where you want to just shut the door for 3 days, sit in front of the TV, get the kettle on.
It's theatre, isn't it?
It's theatre. It's theatre.
And you've been in Luke Donald's shoes in terms of taking a team to foreign soil with the sole aim of bringing a cup home. From what you've seen of Luke, how impressed have you been by his leadership?
Oh, fantastic! I actually met him at Wimbledon. We were lucky enough to be in the Royal Box together, and had a chat with him a couple of years ago. And I think just seeing the documentaries about him, he's like us all. He's an obsessive. His detail is absolutely huge, and I think for him to turn around the Ryder Cup team a couple of years ago in Italy was just amazing. So, and I think the biggest thing as a coach point of view, you do the players trust him, and you don't get trust or respect by being the boss. You get it by the quality of your actions. And I think what he's done since he's been the Ryder Cup captain has been amazing. and I think his wife's got a big part to play in that as well. I think she's done a brilliant job, which is really important behind the scenes. So I think we're kind of between the two captains. I think we're a bit ahead there as well.
Yes.
I think he's ahead of Kieran Bradley, and so I think we're in a really good position. But it was just fascinating, even on when they won 2 years ago. They were still celebrating and they were shouting 2 more years, two more years. I mean, crikey, if you're the coach, if you're Luke, that was you'll never admit it, but that would be a massive buzz.
Yeah.
Where the team's right behind you, and because you've got to make big calls, you've got to make calls that are not going to be popular with all the team, and that's where you got to know you've got a good team. Everyone takes it on board. It's a team game, and everyone's just got to move forward, and you've got to know, and everyone's really working as a team. And I think the Ryder Cup, when I saw the team announced, when you see all the European team, I mean, it's a very strong team, and it's just going to be amazing.
Clearly, Luke's role is he's not coaching the players, he's not telling them what to do. It's much more of a man management, motivational kind of role. If you compare back to what you were doing 2003 at the World Cup, how much of your job was coaching the basics, as we've spoken about, on the training pitch, and how much was the motivational man management side of things?
Well, I think it's both. I think the actual coaching side is a lot easier than the man management side because, and also you hire really good coaches. We are amazing. You mentioned Dave Allred. I got Andy Robinson, Phil Larder, Dave Redding. I had some of the best coaches out, and we had this amazing coaching team. So my background's in coaching. My degree was from Loughborough University in sports science and coaching. I'm a teacher basically. But you've got to get off the field right as well. You can get it right on the field of play, but getting it off the field right is absolutely key. But I think in terms of to answer your question, the balance is it's kind of you've got to be doing both.
Yeah.
There's times you've got to be coaching and you got to. But I always go back for you're actually dead right with when you're international coaching is very different than club coaching because you haven't really got time to coach. If you're brutally honest, you're just getting them organised.
Yeah.
And the organisation will come back to your basics. And the basics of rugby were quite straightforward to me. The line out scrums and restarts. We get those 3 things right, that's a hell of a start. And then if we can attack their basics, so the opposition's line out scrums and restarts, that's where rugby starts and finishes basically. Unless you get those things right, the things don't move on from there. So Luke's got to get his basics right, and the number one thing, I've always said this in the Ryder Cup especially, is selection. Yeah. He's already gotten, you're doing to start the job by picking his picks and getting his 12 players together. But then and what I am really fascinated by is the pairings, how he works out. Even the last day, the batting order in terms of those 12, and that is fascinating because that is really understanding. And I think data does come into it a lot.
Massively. So he's got Eduardo Molinari alongside him who really leans into that and works out who's best with whom for whether it's foursomes or 4 balls. Yeah,
and we had a guy called Tony Biscombe. He was our kind of stats guy and IT guy. But I think also what I would say to Luke, and we had this conversation, I think data is really, really important, but it's got to reinforce your gut feeling. Mm-hmm. I still absolutely believe in the head coach, your brain. You've got to use your common sense, your knowledge. If the data backs that up, big tick. But if you and the data cross and say, actually, that doesn't make sense to me, you're still got to go, I think, with your own your gut feeling. And I think that's really, really important. And there's some selections I can remember making at rugby now where you can see what everyone announced it going, "Ooh, are you sure?" But that to me absolutely made sense. The data was saying the other things, and I like to think that England rugby team, we were one of the first to really use data. We used the ProZone system, and it was fascinating to see what all the data came up with. But at the end of the day, I had to make the decisions, and I had some real run-ins with some of the coaches, because I had come out and said, "This is the team." One or two of them say, "Well, shut the door. We're not leaving this room." We had some real kind of heated conversations, but I'd always go with my decision in the end. But I listened to other people and all the data. And at the end of the day, if you win, you tend to be right, and if you lose, you leave yourself pretty wide open. But I think the selection of the Ryder Cup, not only the 12, but during these 3 days, is just absolutely fascinating. You write down the first day when who's playing with who and why would you do that, and you see the personalities on the European team, the personalities on the American team, and who's playing against who. It's going to be fantastic.
It is, and I think what we've spoken about a lot in the build-up to this Ryder Cup is just how settled that European team is, and the continuity. 11 of the 12 from Rome, just one twin swapped in for the other, and again to sort of tie it into what you did. You know, I'm an Irishman, but I could list that 2003 World Cup winning team off the top of my head. It was such a settled team. They'd been together for such a long time. You know, those units like Hillback, Delalio, and Greenwood and Tyndall in the centres. How important is having a settled unit that know their roles, that know each other, that are comfortable with each other, and know all the messaging that they're getting from their head coach or their captain in Luke's case?
Yeah, I think it's important, but it's not everything. I think every now and then, sometimes to make changes. I mean, you said you can mention the starting 15 in 2003, which is 22 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, I can obviously mention the bench. I can remember the 15 I didn't pick. I remember every single person. I remember really, really well. I remember handling the disappointment. So whilst they're there, you got a settled team, but also you got to make sure that settled team knows they're under pressure. So the non-playing team's got a huge role to play, not just during a World Cup or the Ryder Cup, just in the months leading up to it, to say, I want to be in the team. I really want to be in the team. And it's funny, I've met players since the World Cup who were in that squad who didn't make the final, starting 15 on bench, and they're still pretty upset, more with themselves, that they look back now and say, maybe I could have done just a little bit more to make myself in to actually get in that team. So, but a settled teams, I think sometimes you can be too settled. Sometimes you got to pull a rabbit out of the hat and say, no, I'm going to start with this player, and I certainly did that during the World Cup. I made a few choices in my starting 15, not just in the World Cup final, but just so that. Are you sure about that? And it was in you mentioned Greenwood and Tyndall. You know, in the semi-final, I left Tyndall out, and I played with Greenwood and Cat for the reasons for who we were actually playing against. And then in the final, I switched them round again. I brought back Tyndall to play with Greenwood and put Cat on the bench. Now there's reasons for doing that. Now when you're talking to the players one-on-one, you know, the Cat and Greenwood have been, so Cat and Tyndall were left out with one of those games. They're not agreeing with you. They want to play in the semi. They want to, so they can sit there and they can be as settled as you like. They're not agreeing with what you're saying, but they just need to actually take it on the chin. They need to, and we just almost rehearsed this. How do you rehearse getting good news? How do you rehearse getting bad news? You know, and I call this. It's pretty well known in the Rugby World Teacup, which is thinking correctly under pressure. Yeah. And this is all about anticipating future things. And I want players to anticipate being picked where they're going to be great, putting on the bench where they'll be a little bit disappointed, and obviously not picked, being really disappointed. How you handle that moment in time will actually help the team win or help the team lose. So you got to actually prepare for those situations, and I think we did a pretty good job in the end. But the players were great because they handled disappointment and success. So you need a settled team, but things can actually change. Yeah. And even you a settled team, but you know, if you're in the European team, for example, and you're not picked, say, the first 2 days, have you just been kept for the third day of the single? How are you going to feel? Yeah. Are you going to feel aggrieved? Are you going to make you get upset? Are you going to have a paddy in the changing rooms? You know, so it is important. But I think a settled team is fundamentally good. An experienced team is good, but if you have to make those changes and look for a rookie to come through, you've got to be prepared to do that.
And I think all those guys have ultimate trust in Luke. They know that whatever he says has been thought through, that there is a reason behind it. Yeah. It's also so important as a head coach, as a captain, to have your trusted lieutenants on the field as well, isn't it? Yeah. And I think, again, back to your side, Martin Johnson was the captain, but you had leaders all over that field. Yeah. And I think Luke is going to lean so heavily on the likes of Rory McIlroy, John Ram, Tommy Fleetwood, these big characters, these alpha males, these proven winners, as his lieutenants out on the course. I
think also, Jim, I noted down, you know, the vice captains is obviously big in the Ryder Cup. I think there's 5 in each team. Especially I wrote down Lathabal. Yeah. You know, having him there, he is sort of Seve. You see Lathabal, you see Seve. Yeah. I think having him there, who's also a winning Ryder Cup captain, he's got
last winning captain on away soil.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think your vice captains are important. Again, I put huge store on my coaching team. We still meet 22, 23. We meet every year at Christmas. Yeah. You know, us and our wives, and we just meet up, and that was so important because I trusted them. I trusted them because, you know, it was always my decision. I'm the head coach. I'm the Luke Donald. I'm the boss. But you've got to ask, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And you've got to listen. And I think one of the key things in leadership in all positions, in not just golf and rugby and but business, it's these things that are really, really important. You can talk as much as you like, but you've got to listen because you've got a lot of experience there. haven't got to agree with them, but you got to actually be prepared to actually take on board what they're saying and but you make the final call. But I think people kind of trust you if you do give them time to what you think. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but you've got to actually listen to them. And I think Luke's an outstanding young man. I think he's, not just last year, but this will test him.
Just finally, then, are we going to bring it home?
Are we going to bring it home? I think definitely yes. When I saw the team,
yeah,
and when I've been seeing how well, the Fleetwoods, the McIlroys, the Rose, they've all been winning the last few weeks.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think we've got a really, really strong side, and I think we've got good characters as well. I can see them all looking forward to going there and having a bit of a moment with the crowd.
Yeah.
And also we've got some tough characters there. But again, going back to how you pair them up. Do you pair your two strong ones up together, or do you kind of put your strong characters with maybe the not quite so strong characters?
Yeah.
If anything was to happen during a round of golf, which happened last time with the caddy, or there was a few of the crowd saying stuff, you could need the tough guy there who's just going to scream. And I think that the crowd also respect our team. They know we got some tough characters out there, winners. So, if you're kind of facing up to McIlroy or Rahm and these guys, they're not going to back off it. So this is going to be an amazing event, and can't wait to watch it. And I'll be glued to the TV.
Yeah, you will not be on your own. I think everyone's been looking forward to this one for a long time, and you're going to have the best seat in the house because 3 days coverage on Sky Sports Golf is the place to watch it. Thanks so much for coming in today. Best of luck with Strive as well. It sounds like a fantastic idea, and I'm sure everybody will embrace it. So thanks for popping by, Sir Clive. Lovely to have you on.
Thanks, Jamie.
Some other news in the world of golf over this last week. Charlie Hull is a winner again. Her first victory in 3 years after the most remarkable conclusion to the Kroger Queen City Championship in Ohio. The world number one, Gina Titicun, took a one-shot lead up the 72nd hole. She is the best putter on the planet and four-putted the final hole. Had a birdie putt of about 5 or 6 feet to win. Drilled it by, then missed a 2-foot putt for par. Charlie, who was physically shaking, she was that nervous, then just about managed to hole a 2-foot birdie putt to win by 1. A win that her superb consistency this season deserves. And this is incredible. She is the 25th different winner of the season on the LPGA Tour in 24 events. Now, you didn't mishear that. One of them was a pairs event. So 25 different winners in 24 events. Bonkers. On the PGA Tour, well, Scotty Scheffler is a winner again. His 6th win of the year to match his 6 wins from last year. Only 4 players have ever done that. Scotty joins Arnie, Jack and Tiger. We are talking about a very special talent here, as if you didn't know that already. He pipped Ben Griffin by a shot to win the Pro Tour Championship in Napa. Griffin had a 7-footish putt on the 72nd hole to take it to a playoff, but it slipped by. 4 US Ryder Cup players in the top 10 there. Scheffler and Griffin 1st and 2nd. JJ Spawn 6th. And Cam Yan 9th. Coming up this week, no event on the PGA Tour. They were back for Napa, but now they're off again. On the DP World Tour, as we've been discussing with Nico earlier on, it's the historic Open de France, not at Le Golf National, but at Saint-Nom-la-Bretèche. And the LPGA Tour move on to Arkansas for the Walmart Championship. Will we have a 26th different winner in 25 events? Nelly Korda still waiting for one this year, remember, and she is in the field. But that does us for today. Thank you to all my guests, to Nico Colsaerts and to Sir Clive Woodward. If you've liked what you've heard or watched today, do make sure you give us a follow on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your pods. Leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. A huge thank you, as always, to Callaway for sponsoring the podcast. And next week, as if you needed reminding, we'll be bringing you the podcast from Bethpage in New York as Luke Donald and his 12 men aim to do what no away team has managed since the Miracle of Medinah and bring that Ryder Cup home. See you then, and come on Europe!